One night, a man walks into a bar, looking sad. The bartender asks the man what he wants. The man says, "Oh, just a beer." The bartender asked the man, "What's wrong? Why are you so down today?" The man said, "My wife and I got into a fight, and she said she wouldn't talk to me for a month." The bartender said, "So what's wrong with that?" The man said, "Well, the month is up tonight." A groom waits at the altar with a huge smile on his face. His best man asks, "Why do you look so excited?" The groom replies, "I just had the best blow job I have ever had in my entire life, and I am marrying the wonderful woman who gave it to me." The bride waits at the other end of the aisle with a huge smile on her face. Her maid of honor asks, "Why do you look so excited?" The bride replies, "I just gave the last blow job of my entire life." On their 25th wedding anniversary and during the banquet celebrating it, Joseph was asked to give his friends a brief account of the benefits of a marriage of such a long duration. "Tell us, Joseph, just what have you learned from all those wonderful years with your wife?" Joseph responds, "Well, I've learned that marriage is the best teacher of all. It teaches you loyalty, meekness, forbearance, self-restraint, forgiveness, and a great many other qualities you wouldn't have needed if you'd stayed single." A man is talking to the family doctor. "Doc, I think my wife's going deaf." The doctor answers, "Well, here's something you can try on her to test her hearing. Stand some distance away from her and ask her a question. If she doesn't answer, move a little closer and ask again. Keep repeating this until she answers. Then you'll be able to tell just how hard of hearing she really is." The man goes home and tries it out. He walks in the door and says, "Honey, what's for dinner?" He doesn't hear an answer, so he moves closer to her. "Honey, what's for dinner?" Still no answer. He repeats this several times, until he's standing just a few feet away from her. Finally, she answers. "For the 11th time, I said we're having meatloaf." There was this couple who had been married for 50 years. They were sitting at the breakfast table one morning when the old gentleman said to his wife, "Just think, honey, we've been married for 50 years. "Yeah," she replied. "Just think, 50 years ago, we were sitting here at this breakfast table together." "I know," the old man said. "We were probably sitting here naked as jaybirds 50 years ago." "Well," Granny snickered, "what do you say? Should we get?" Whereupon, the two stripped to the buff and sat down at the table. "You know, honey," the little old lady breathlessly replied, "my are as hot for you today as they were 50 years ago." "I wouldn't be surprised," replied Gramps. "One's in your coffee, and the other is in your oatmeal." Gravely ill, the skipper was examined by a doctor while his wife stood by. After the examination, the physician motioned for her to meet him in the hallway. "Your husband is very sick," the doctor said. "Still, you can do 3 things to ensure his survival. First, fix him 3 healthy meals a day. Next, give him a stress-free environment and don't complain about anything. Finally, have sex and oral with him every day." The doctor left and the woman returned to her husband's room. "What did the doctor say?" he asked. "I'm sorry, my dear," she said, "but he said you're not going to make it." A lawyer married a woman who had previously divorced 10 husbands. On their wedding night, she told her new husband, "Please be gentle, I'm still a virgin." "What?" said the puzzled groom. "How can that be if you've been married 10 times?" "Well, husband 1 was a sales representative, he kept telling me how great it was going to be. Husband 2 was in software services, he was never really sure how it was supposed to function, but he said he'd look into it and get back to me. Husband 3 was from field services, he said everything checked out diagnostically, but he just couldn't get the system up. Husband 4 was in telemarketing, even though he knew he had the order, he didn't know when he would be able to deliver. Husband 5 was an engineer. He understood the basic process but wanted 3 years to research, implement, and design a new state-of-the-art method. Husband 6 was from finance and administration. He thought he knew how, but he wasn't sure whether it was his job or not. Husband 7 was in marketing. Although he had a nice product, he was never sure how to position it. Husband 8 was a psychologist. All he ever did was talk about it. Husband 9 was a gynecologist. All he did was look at it. Husband 10 was a stamp collector. All he ever did was... God. I miss him. But now that I've married you, I'm really excited. Good, said the new husband, but why? You're a lawyer. This time, I know I'm going to get screwed. Julia tells her husband, James, that young couple that just moved in next door seems such a loving twosome. Every morning, when he leaves the house, he kisses her goodbye, and every evening when he comes home, he brings her a dozen roses. Now, why can't you do that? Gosh, James says, why I hardly know the girl. A typical macho man married a typical good-looking lady, and after the wedding, he laid down the following rules. I'll be home when I want, if I want, and at what time I want, and I don't expect any hassle from you. I expect a great dinner to be on the table unless I tell you that I won't be home for dinner. I'll go hunting, fishing, boozing, and card-playing when I want with my old buddies, and don't you give me a hard time about it? Those are my rules. Any comments? His new bride said, no, that's fine with me. Just understand that there will be sex here at 7 o'clock every night, whether you're here or not. A dietitian was once addressing a large audience in Chicago. The material we put into our stomachs is enough to have killed most of us sitting here years ago. Red meat is awful. Vegetables can be disastrous, and none of us realize the germs in our drinking water. But there is one thing that is the most dangerous of all, and we all eat it. Can anyone here tell me what lethal product I'm referring to? You, sir, in the first row, please give us your idea. The man lowered his head and said, wedding cake. We have already spent 2 years together with my girlfriend and decided to get married. My parents helped as much as they could, and all my friends said it was a really good idea. My girlfriend? She is a dream. But there is something that bothers me. This something is her little sister. This is my future 20-year-old sister-in-law, wearing super skinny mini skirts and short She always leans ahead, and I was often lucky to see her underwear. She never did that in front of someone else. One day she calls me and asks me to go home to see the wedding invitations. When I arrived, she was alone. She whispered that soon I would get married, that she had feelings for me for a long time, and that she thought she couldn't overcome them. She also said that she desperately wanted to have sex with me just once before I married her sister. I was shocked and could not say a word. She said to me that she goes to bed and asked if I wanted to go up with her. I froze and looked at her going up the stairs. Going up, she took her pants off and threw them at me. I stayed there for a moment and then ran to the door. I opened it, and I walked to the car. My future father-in-law was standing outside with tears in his eyes, hugged me, and said, I'm glad you passed this little test, and I am sure that my daughter could not find a better man. Welcome to the family, my son. Moral lesson, always keep your in your car.